All right, we are back with Carl from the Bay Area. And Tim, you've got a pretty interesting background. Educated in science, global background with the Navy, shipping, medical interests. You've been in restaurants, for example, wine, and a chef, from what I understand. You'll have to tell me about that, as well as McKinsey and very entrepreneurial. Thank God there's not anything else. Like, that's not enough. Share with us how this has, and for example, how you've evolved in your career. And the way I would put it is, are you at the point where this is what I always wanted to be when I grow up?
Well, when I was growing up, I wanted to be an explorer. I mean, that was really what drove me forward. I thought the world was just this amazing place with all these different activities. And so I really felt like, wow, can I do something with my life that just continually explores?
Mm-hmm.
And so in a way, yes, I have reached that point. But then again, I've been at that point in many different careers and different situations. So I'm very happy about that. So what appears to some as really an eclectic career path is actually just a function of curiosity. My lack of fear to switch paths and explore has led me to some of the greatest moments in my life, in my career.
Mm-hmm.
I love creating new companies from scratch, building brands, developing concepts, and finding ways to be innovative. And they've always driven me forward and continue to provide some of the most thrilling moments in my life. I really do feel like that explorer piece to it is important. Growing up watching Jacques Cousteau certainly had its effects.
All right, good old Jacques Cousteau, nice.
One of the things that I really love is seeing an idea transform from just something that's in somebody's mind into something physical, something that provides a service or provides a value, all the while providing employees with resources and support for their families and loved ones. I mean, this to me is something that I'm actually very grateful for, and I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to be able to accomplish those things.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. I always get a amazing kick out of whether I'm going up to Palo Alto or wherever I am about true visionaries, because there's one thing to disrupt an industry that you see stuff going on, and that's a big thing too, and change it. But to see something that's not even in existence yet is unbelievable. I've no idea how they do that, but it's incredible. So obviously you're a creative person, whether it's cooking, the winery, and you've consulted with large and small businesses. You're doing it now with Haystack, and you're also involved in rating. Is there a common element between all of these that helps you achieve success, however success is defined?
Well, I mean, I think success is really a tricky word. For most of us, it has an economic measure. But in reality, for the most part, when I talk to people that consider themselves successful, they actually define it more broadly.
Yeah.
And money, of course, is important at one level, but wealth and being miserable seems pretty less, I think, to most of us. So I remember having a childhood friend, and when we were growing up, she told me this great story about when she was going to create this company. She was going to make $1 million, and when she made $1 million, she was going to quit her job, buy a boat, and then go travel the world. So she actually did very well. She did very well. She made her first $1 million like in the late 80s.
Wow.
And so I went to her and I said, I won't use her name, but I said to her, so you have your $1 million, where's the boat? And she said, because the dollar's so weak, I've changed my plan. It's $5 million. She said, it's $5 million. Well, by the end of the 90s, she was, worth 10 million, 20 million. She was worth a lot of money, and we stopped talking about it.
So don't tell me you asked her to marry you.
No, very good friend.
Mm-hmm.
Too good. My wife would not have been happy with that.
Yeah.
But then 2002, she actually got sick. The internet had taken away a lot of her wealth through that first internet bubble.
Right.
And she got sick and she had cancer. And we're sitting in her hospital bed. And I said, so and she's very frail. And I said to her, I said, what about success? You've been successful. This is a big thing. And she said, if I could do it again, I would do it differently. And she had in her room, this is in the hospital room, she had this picture on the wall, which was of a boat in the tropics. Well, 2 months later, she died. She passed. It's a tragic story, but it always reminds me that success is really a tricky word.
It is.
But success is not tricky. Success is a tricky word, but success itself is not tricky, because what I've found is you just find what makes you happy and just make sure that it doesn't cause others to be unhappy. And once you've done that, your path to success is pretty clear.
Isn't it simple, right? And I like simplifying things like a lot. Contracts simple, keeping things as simple as possible. And it is true, and it is true very much that the most successful people I see, it's clearly money is not number one or number two, and maybe it's number three. You obviously have to have and understand the importance of it, but it's not success, and you realize that very quickly when health comes into play, obviously. So that's a great story. Let me ask you, McKinsey. You talked about McKinsey before, and learned a lot there. How has your experience at McKinsey helped you meet the challenges, capture the opportunities, be happy?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good question. It's certainly pertinent. Working with people at McKinsey really continues to be one of the highlights of my life. The sheer intellectual power of my colleagues continues to inspire. And this was a group of truly dedicated, truly bright, really, really special folks, and I was honored to be there. Some of my deepest and dearest friendships were actually cultivated both on the McKinsey side, but then also on the client side. Mm-hmm. I still have those really great relationships, and I think it just has to do with that shared bond of really trying to achieve something that's really impactful. In terms of the practical things that I learned that I kind of carry with me on a daily basis, there's really three that are most memorable.
Another hat trick.
Oddly enough, the leadership, which we've talked about, but and then there's persistence and effective communication. So I have talked just briefly about leadership earlier, which has to do with, in my view, of listening, contemplation, taking decisive but flexible action. But persistence at McKinsey manifests by never really being satisfied without having explored, uncovered, and analyzed nearly every possible angle. When others outside the firm seem perfectly satisfied, my McKinsey colleagues urge me on with the highest of expectations, believing that words like impossible and too hard were only signposts to new insights.
Yeah.
But once insight had been reached, and I think this is something I really do come back to all the time. Once an insight had been reached, what good is the insight if you can't communicate effectively? And so McKinsey really taught me the immense value of communicating complex ideas as simply and efficiently as possible. And they did this by teaching me to use familiar structures, frameworks, issue trees, and synthesizing complex information just by pondering it and really being with it for long enough and deep enough to really understand, so that we hear what we learned. And I think for me, there were those three that I constantly come back to, but there are hundreds of other learnings. Some of the top ones perhaps were the value of taking care of both your client and also your team. This is really important in McKinsey, big deal, and something that they instilled in me. The value placed on high ethical standards. That was something that I never ceased to be amazed at, just the level of ethical rigor that would go into a lot of the work, or all of the work that I dealt with. And then there was also this really magical effect, and people talk about McKinsey a lot, but for me, the magical effect was this, it was achieved by this tireless dedication to the client. So it was this idea that this client really has, it's really very important to help them solve their problem, and we're just going to do this. And it was that tireless dedication that really provided the magic. And so all of these learnings really continue to provide me with inspiration and, a skill set to be able to do what I do in my daily life.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Kind of segues into kind of next point I want to talk about. I've been fortunate to work with a lot of people globally, as you have in small business, large businesses, and whatnot. And what I noticed what's really important, and when I talk to executives all the time, but doing searches and whatnot, I always ask them, "What's the vision? What's the vision?" Really, what they're asking is, "What's their why?" Which is the term I love the most. What's their why? And tell me a little bit about, why your why, how that brings value to your clients, how it brings value to yourself. Why is that so powerful?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. I really do. I think it's a great way to phrase it, this idea of why. For me, my whys are to provide exceptional and value generating service to my clients, customers, and employees, with the key word really being service. I think service and the service mentality is very important to me, and I think it provides something that is, it goes beyond what many provide. One of my earliest consulting mentors explained that providing service was my primary role. So that really did sing with me and continues on with me. She told me that the clients that we served were faced with extremely challenging problems, and that it was our job to find a way to solve their problems in a manner that serviced both them, their goals, but also in a way that fostered team building and personal growth. Mm-hmm. So it's this idea of balance, but also really this idea of service. So the idea was complicated on the one hand, but sustainable and very powerful advice on the other.
Absolutely. That's I find it unbelievably powerful. I was talking to a client just the other day, and I was on with 3 leaders of a new young startup, but pretty backed up, funded wise and whatnot. And I asked them, okay, I'm attracting the best person here. I'm the candidate. You want me. I'm asking this question. What's your vision? And they didn't have one yet.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, come on. I mean, you actually have something awesome here. A great candidate's going to ask you, what's your why? Yeah. Wants to make sure his is the same as yours. So I'm totally attuned to you. For up and coming leaders, then you've kind of answered this in a way. Tell us what you believe. Might be the most important experiences, the most important relationships they should look for in building their own personal, career.
Yeah, another question. It's, of course, you had time to think of these.
Absolutely.
But, I think mentorship is it's just so important, and it's played such an important role in my life, both professionally and then socially. I found great mentors at every level of business, from above, across, below. In fact, the most effective mentorship relationships that I've ever had really include both a teacher and student type of situation. I think remaining humble and having a genuine interest in the success of others has provided me with the deepest and most fulfilling relationships, both on the mentor and mentee level. Mm-hmm. And this is really something that continues to really resonate with me. In terms of advice for new or younger leaders or people entering the world of business, but then I think also just socially, it's really finding people that inspire you. Find people that inspire you, engage them with an invitation for a cup of coffee. Ask them for advice. Ask them for advice on a specific issue, and just see where the relationship goes from there. It's pretty amazing when you can go and say to somebody that inspires you, can I buy you a cup of coffee? And you know what? 95% of the time they say, of course.
What's interesting, Tim, is I tell people who are out there, either if they're looking for a job or opportunity possibly, or even especially not, is if you see somebody quoted in a newspaper or somewhere and it's a great article and whatnot, I say you can make a difference in their life. If you call them up and say, I saw what you talked about in that article, it really resonated with me. I'd like to talk to you about it. I'll tell you, the majority of people, first of all, they're human, so they love that.
I love that.
And second of all, that engagement is so cool.
Yeah.
And they built the best relationships doing that.
Well, I mean, I've often read a book that inspires me, and I email the author.
Right.
Track down their email, and they write back, most of the time.
Well, that you speak about what's success. Success is, in that sense, somebody appreciated what you wrote.
Yeah,
which is great. It's great. All right, these are like kind of sort of personal, not too personal questions, but they're kind of 1 to 2 to 3 word answers.
Okay.
No, that's hard, but 1 to 3 word answers. So, do you have any pets?
I do. Yeah, we always have pets. Lots of pets. Cats, dogs. Right now, I have an Australian Shepherd. His name is Sam.
Awesome. All right, we're asking executives to send us a picture of them and their pets because I won't go into a long story how this happened, but we're going to be doing a little series called Pets and Their Executives.
Okay. Well, I have one I can send you.
All right, good. Do you have a favorite activity or sport?
Well, I do. I love to write. I love to take photos. I love to scuba. I'm an scuba instructor. So often I'll combine all 3 of those and I'll go on a trip. I just got back from a trip to Indonesia with a bunch of winemaker friends, and we went scuba diving, and I wrote an article for a travel magazine. It was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. How about a favorite movie or TV show?
Well, I think movies, I love good storytelling. You tell me a good story, and I just love it. So I think recent movies, the movie Her, I thought was excellent. American Sniper was very well done. And then Nightcrawler, which is a little bit of an odd but good noir film that's got great acting, great storytelling.
Good choices. Check out an independent movie called Hesher. That was my son's first lead role.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was very cool. How
cool.
about, do you have a favorite book?
Well, I have favorite authors. And then, I love Raymond Carver, Jennifer Egan, George Saunders, Billy Collins. I mean, I have, there's a lot of Russian authors that I like. I like to read the old classics, but any of those books I can devour.
Awesome stuff. How about music and food?
Well, I think, for me, it's not so much music, it's wine and food. Those are the things that drive me. So in terms of food, I'm vegetarian. So simple Mediterranean food is great for me. Innovative dishes, obscure ethnic, spicy food like peri-peri yams. I just, peri-peri, I didn't know about this until about a year ago, and I love these peppers. So these are really great.
Man, I can't wait to get up to the Bay. We're going to have a good time, man.
It'll be a good time. And then the wines, I think, for me, in California, there's Paloma, there's Peter Michael, there's Catalia, who is a new wine. She just got Winemaker of the Year. Her name, Gonzalez Rave, I think is her last name. And she is Bibiana Rave. And just spectacular wines.
Really?
She's from Colombia. If you can get on her list, get on her list. It's truly amazing. Then from France, I love Linge Bage. I love any Chateauneuf de Pape from the Rhone.
All right, stop showing off. Have you seen Bottle Shock?
Yeah, Bottle Shock, good friend Bo Barrett is a good friend.
It's a good movie. Hey, listen, thanks so much for sharing all this with us.
Of course.